Evening, everybody. Hello.
Good morning.
We're very happy to have Norwegian audience with us in philosophy and other friends of NIA. So you might have heard this morning that NIA is a foreign archaeological school starting in 1989. And now our task is to bring closer the Norwegian and the Greek academic community. So we are really happy to have students from Norway. It's actually a big thing for NIA. Professor Spanos, Apostolos Spanos, is an old friend of NIA and has been collaborating with us since the early days. Now he's here under the capacity of history and AI specialist. And this is something new that we are introducing at the Institute in 2023, some more digital humanities subjects, different kinds, but focused on new technologies and humanities, which is something we need to look at. Apostolos Spanos has studied theology, journalism, and paleography in the past. But at present, he teaches at the University of Agder, southern Norway. Historian, he looks at historical consciousness, theory, and method of history. Today, he's going to present some ideas about using ChatGPT in teaching and research, and also other kinds of new methods of modeling history and using games in history. I'm giving the floor to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. It's always an honor. It's always a pleasure being here. It, even emotionally is really nice coming back. I would like to correct one thing. I am not an expert in history and AI. It's funny because, at my university, everybody at my faculty, which is, faculty of humanities, usually we are very conservative people and we have no idea about, new technologies and so on. So everybody at my faculty says, the expert is Apostolos. And I tell them the whole time when they invite me to introduce things and to present things and so on, that, I have no idea of how AI technologies function when it comes to the machine part and when it comes to the intelligence part. I believe that what is important when it comes to this new technology that, in a kind of a storm-like process, took our lives and changed it upside down, is that with this new technology, it is clear that we have to enter projects of co-creation, which means that I, as a historian, I have to cooperate with experts in AI, experts in modeling, and we have to create things together. Because, if I spent 2 years of my life to understand AI, I will never really understand it well. And in the meantime, I will not write 1 or 2 extremely boring books I can write in 1 or 2 years. So what I want to present to you today, share with you today, is basically 2 things. One thing we did with some colleagues, because nothing of what I'm going to present here today is done by me. It is done by some amazing colleagues and myself. And it's one thing that is related to me as a teacher, not as a historian, this thing. And the second thing, which we will see which thing it will be, is related to me as a historian and my cooperation with amazing colleagues in other fields. So I hope that this will be interesting for at least some of you stackars där unge som men detta kommer vi inte till översätta till alla andra. Okej, men yes, okay. ChatGPT came up, appeared in December 2022. And, everybody reacted in the usual way we react when such a technology comes up. Every time we have a huge innovation, we react in fear, we react by being suspicious about, what how are students, how are pupils at school going to use this new technology? Because, for people who have the same hair color as me, you are a kind of, criminal culprits, every new technology that comes up and you will try to use it, against us, to cheat because you are lazy and so on. Everybody is lazy. So don't be, you have the right to be proud of being lazy. We all are. We are programmed by nature to be lazy. So the thing came up and we started talking at the universities, what we're going to do, how are we going to use this thing, or how are we going to fight against this thing and against the possibilities that it gives to people who can use it or abuse it or whatever. I started using it very early, already in January 23. And I started using it with my master students in the beginning. And I realized that it's a beautiful tool, a beautiful thing to use if you want to improve your teaching, if you want to make it a bit more attractive for the students, because, technology much, much better than me. My students were telling me that, we don't use it and we don't know how to use it and so on. And I don't know if I was to believe them, but anyway. And then I started discussing with some colleagues, a colleague in AI, Christian O'Leary, and a colleague in educational technologies, Alexandra Lazareva, two of my colleagues at the university. And then we created a team with 4 amazing students, because I love working with students. It was 2 students in IT, in technology. One of them designed what I'm going to show you, and the other programmed it. And we had 2 of my students as advisors and as users who will give us feedback and, guarantee that the quality of what we were doing was good for the students themselves. So we decided that, because I wanted to use this new technology in relation to a theory and a method of how we learn, how you learn. And, because, I think when I have you here, stackars there, I think, what can we give these people so that they will get, out in the sun, because you could be, out there enjoying the sun. And I have to try to give you something so that I will not feel so much guilty, when I'm getting out of this room. To be honest, I will not. I don't care about you, but that's another thing. So I wanted to put it in a dialogue with a learning theory. So what do I write there? Bullshit. Yeah. Okay. What did we need and wanted to do? We thought, this is a machine, this is a chatbot. Now, everybody has used it. This was in the very beginning, in the first months after it came up. What are we going to do? So we had to work on prompting it, programming it to give specific answers to specific questions within my course. This is about my course on historical consciousness. Historia bevissthet, ser vi på norsk. Which is, the most important thing you can teach in history, of course. And then we wanted to prepare ChatGPT to play different roles in its cooperation with the students. I wanted my students to meet and talk with ChatGPT as a teacher, as a student, another student, as a colleague they could work with, as an examiner who would give some feedback or put some grades or anything, and as what we call a Socrates. Socrates was a guy nobody liked in antiquity. That's why, they gave him something. They killed him at the end because, one of the things he did and everybody was pissed off was that you went to Socrates, who was a kind of, a wise person, and you asked something. And Socrates would say, what do you think? He would never give an answer. He would always answer with a new question because he wanted you to find out what the truth is in this case. So one of the things we wanted the machine to do was to help my students to check their knowledge or to try to find the relevant answers themselves. And this, we wanted to prompt the machine, the algorithm, to give some feedback to the students, student texts and everything in relation to the content of the texts, the structures of the text, and the language of the text. And I will get back to, I don't like PowerPoints. Let's get over. Let me present you something you would like, guys, the Agder guys. The theory we used says we all learn on the basis of 6 different cognitive activities. If it happens that I fall down or something, just laugh. It's nice. And if I destroy anything, we simply start to run. And you guys cover me, from the people. So the theory says we learn by remembering. Okay, we learn by understanding. This is what you do. Sometimes you read and read and read again because your teacher next day will ask you, what do you know about these things? And you try to remember. You learn even better by understand, says the theory. And I agree. Sometimes you learn by applying. You do something and you learn by doing it. Sometimes you learn by analyzing. You try to understand and analyze what is this subject, how it functions and everything. An object or anything, a mechanism, anything, okay? Sometimes you learn by evaluating. Probably, you read a text of mine. If you have a good teacher, probably, it gives you a text that the great giant Apostolos Spanos wrote sometime in the past. And then he or she says, can you evaluate it? Is it good or is it bullshit? Or is it, bullshit plus or something? Okay. And you learn because, to evaluate my text or anything, you have to put on some criteria and you have to reflect about the criteria. What is good? What is wrong? What is right? And everything. And the last thing is that we learn by creating. You do something and you learn a lot. You learn about the process, you learn about the material, you may learn about anything. So you learn by doing. And the theory says that there are 4 types of knowledge. And this is, guys, something I would love you to remember. There is factual knowledge, data, information, facts. When you read history, you read about what happened when and who and why and so on. These are the facts. And then comes the so-called conceptual knowledge. Because, to understand something, when you see this thing over there, no, you don't. But anyway, what's there, right? Beautiful. And that behind or on the other side, they started in reality, or they invented and organized and everything, what we call democracy. But what does democracy mean? To understand what democracy is, how it functions and so on, you get into what we call conceptual knowledge. Okay, begrepen van ons. Okay, wat betyder alle disse begrepen en begrippen voor ons snakke om nieuwe som helst, vad som helst. The guys, the other ones, sorry for the Norwegian. And then you have what is called procedural knowledge. I understand that you are focusing on philosophy, right? Okay. In philosophy, you have procedures. How does philosophy function? How does philosophical thinking function and so on? So you have specific things about philosophy. You learn about, all these amazing, great Greek philosophers and so on. This is factual knowledge. And then when you start thinking about the different things they said, you jump into conceptual knowledge. But at the same time, to learn even better, you have to think, okay, how does philosophy function? How does philosophy function as a science and so on? Finally comes this amazing thing, which is probably the most important thing you can start working on already now, because it will help you in the rest of your lives, which is called metacognitive knowledge. What does this mean? What does this mean for my students? It means how you function. How do you learn? Okay? When, I am sure that you are all amazing pupils, and I am sure that all my students are amazing students, 99.12% of them or something, okay? How? Because, each one of you follows different strategies, different methods, and so on. Some of you like reading and reading and reading and reading. Some of you like talking with others, and you learn this way. Some of you learn by play historical games, Assassin's Creed, and all these things. So each one of us has her or his own approach to learning. This is what metacognitive knowledge is. And I wanted to work with my students with all these things in one semester, in one course. Parentheses, don't tell anyone, it doesn't function. It's impossible to do all these things in one semester, in one course, but we managed to do very, very much. It was extremely important for my students to know from day number one that you don't trust ChatGPT, you don't trust any LLM. Do you know how these things function? When you talk with an LLM, and I am afraid that some of you, because many people do it around the world, you even talk with them as friends, and you say, this or that person, dumped me. What am I going to do now? And so on. Please.
But what's an LLM?
Oh, an LLM. Thank you. Large language models. Okay. ChatGPT is an LLM. There are some 200 of those. They all are called LLM. Thank you very much. Anyway, a chatbot. Okay. They have no idea what they write. They don't have any knowledge. And I hope you can trust me, they have absolutely no intelligence. We call them artificial intelligence. They are not intelligent. They are statistical models, which means what? You ask it something or you write something. On the basis of the keywords you use, it goes back to a database in which it has access, and tries to find words and expressions that suit better, statistically and grammatically mainly, to what you wrote. Because it has this ability of checking, millions of words and billions of words in 1 second, and it starts spitting out things. It has absolutely no idea of what it writes. So you don't trust it. This is what is called AI hallucinations. So this means that ChatGPT, in our case, we knew it hallucinates. It just writes whatever it comes to its mind. Yes, beautiful. This is what we made. This is a web application, the web application we made. These here are 6 modules of my course. In these 6 modules, we used the application. For each module, what we had was, I'm sorry, I cannot show you something live because I don't have access to the server of the university. So I have only pictures to show you. For each of these modules, we had an introduction to the module on a Wednesday, 2 hours. Stuck student, they have to sit for 2 hours and listen to my nonsense, and and I liked it because I liked it. I might have big things like sitting there, not being able to do anything, I can say whatever I want. And then they had a week in which they could use the thing, they could cooperate with ChatGPT either individually or in groups. I love it when they work in groups. And we created for them different tasks they had to work on, and come back next week, next Tuesday, in which we had seminars, in which we would discuss mainly the stupidity of ChatGPT or the mistakes ChatGPT had done. Because, this is a beautiful thing. By correcting ChatGPT, the students learn what is correct. Okay, so what was that? We had main basic tasks in which we had concrete questions, and ChatGPT would give an answer to what culture is, what cultural evolution is, and so on. And then the students would discuss between them, and then they would come to the university and we would discuss all together. Mainly, I told them, guys, let's try to see what is not exactly right, because what is right, you see it in my textbook, you see it there, you remember it, hopefully. Okay, and we had these Socratic discussions in which the students will start a dialogue, but this, freaking thing would always reply with a new question. And one of the beautiful things we did was that we had such Socratic discussions with the machine in the classroom. So I had my watch there, and I would say, okay, we had this question, we clicked there, we got a kind of an answer with a new question, and I said, we have 3 minutes. What are we writing? And then we started having a kind of a discussion, which I love, chaotic discussions. Everybody was talking and talking and talking, and that Norwegian students usually, don't talk. When you will be students, talk, 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 talk. Okay, don't kill me. It kills me when people don't talk. When I don't talk, because when I talk, everything is beautiful. So that was the thing. 3 minutes. What do we answer? And then they start, because we should answer in one sentence. But which sentence is the question? And you had one student saying that this, no, that, and so on. And at the end, we said, okay, let's write something. New question, new chaos, new question, and so on. And then the students, I hope you can trust me on that, they went on to the canteen to drink coffee, and they continued, fighting on whether these answers were correct or not. And something I love telling my students is, if you continue drinking coffee discussing what we have worked on, then I have done my job. Okay? So that was one thing. Another thing we did was that, because you remember that we learn by applying things. And, the idea was that I wanted my students to teach. I wanted some groups to work together and teach a module. But, as I am lazy, you are lazy, my students are lazy. If you tell them, can you create a PowerPoint? Then they start, looking, you know how it is, okay? Can you create an activity or something? No. So we said, let's use ChatGPT. So they could click here and get instructions on what they would include in a PowerPoint they would use to teach this subject, any subject they had, or to prepare a quiz we could play in classroom, or an activity and this was so beautiful because they didn't do what ChatGPT instructed them to do. They did beautiful things. They started with ChatGPT, but they said, no, this is not good enough. But for me, this was paradise because they worked on that. They read, they learned by preparing all these things. The other thing, in analyzing, they could get something, a text generated by ChatGPT, and they would analyze it on the basis of the nonsense I am writing in the textbook of the course. And this functioned very well because, I wanted every group and I asked every group to come with some feedback, some texts or oral feedback in the classroom. Okay, analyze it. What was good, what was bad, and everything. And this functioned very well. What functioned even better was here, the evaluation of the thing. Here we had, and we still have, two things. One is that I want my students to know how I will grade their exam papers at the end, which means that at the very beginning of the semester, I am uploading a long text, probably no student reads it, but that's another thing, a long text on the criteria on the basis of which I will put an A, a B, a C, a D, an E, an F. So you know from the beginning of the semester that if you want to get an A, that's your upward hill. If you want to have an F, you know, you can have a beer, you can drink a lot of coffee, you can play, digital games the whole night and so on. You don't need me to tell you how and why. So, but what we did here was that I wanted them to put a grade on a text generated by ChatGPT. I said, guys, you will read what ChatGPT writes, and you will be the examiners. You will put a grade, and next week you will come to me and you will tell me why. You put a C. Why? To do so, they learned things about what I wanted them to work on. Parenthesis. Students are amazing when they set grades to others. They are amazing. More than 90% of the students put the right grade and they have the right legitimization of the grade they set. Okay, when you ask them to evaluate themselves. The second part was that a student could upload the text to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT was prompted. You know what the prompt is, right? What do we say in Norwegian? Let the text. Vad säger vi? Let the text. Yes. Tack ska du ha.
Terrible word.
It is indeed. It is indeed. But anyway, prompt, old Norwegian, prompt. So we prompted it to give feedback, not a grade, because I didn't want the machine to discourage any student, and the machine is stupid enough, more stupid than me, so probably the grades would not be correct. But we wanted the machine to give some feedback on language, structure, and so on. So that, and it would say, this is good, this is very good, this is kind of problematic. The students didn't use that much, I understood. And the last thing was related to the exams of the students, because in this course, I had until last year 4 different forms of examination. And each student had the right to choose which one. I had 2 oral forms and 2 written forms of examination. And the students had the right to talk with the machine and get proposals on possible subjects they could write on, or they could speak about in the trial lectures I had as one of the exam forms. But then, of course, they would come to the classroom, they would present the ideas they liked and they were tempted to work on, and we would discuss them. And if I was in agreement that the subject was good and it was, not very difficult and so on, we could agree that, okay, this comes into the list of what you can write on, because I had already a list with subjects on beforehand. And then anyone could work on these subjects. So, now, from now on and until August, we are working on what we, yes, before that, what we learned. No. Yes. At the same time, we worked with the students, because some members of the team interviewed the students on the go. And this was, in the beginning, we thought, okay, let's talk with the students to see how they experience the whole thing, and we could improve the whole thing on the basis of the feedback of the students, and we could write a couple of papers and present them in conferences and so on to help other colleagues too. So we were talking with the students, but what the students told us is that the interviews was a kind of a third circle of learning. So it was the introduction first, my nonsense in the classroom and so on, and then working with ChatGPT at home or in the classroom. And then when we interviewed them about, you remember the metacognitive thing, how did you use it? How did you learn? What was useful? What was difficult? And so on. They realized that talking, reflecting about these things helped them to learn even better. This was a kind of a surprise I didn't have in mind when we started with the project. Let me not get into details there. Yes. What we realized is that students became more comfortable in using AI in general, ChatGPT and so on, because students were also a kind of confused. What is that? Is it good? Is it good enough? And so on. But when they realized that if you use it critically, if you use it on the basis of your own work, then it can be indeed a very useful tool, a very useful assistant in your learning process. That was one thing. Critical thing was very important. And don't forget, I am teaching in history. In history, traditionally, and so on, sometimes in a very boring way, we work a lot on sources, any kind of sources. And it's extremely important for a historian to be critical about her or his sources, because, you read something that was written, 10 years ago, or 1,000 years ago, or 2,000 years ago, you will never, never, never take it for granted, because you always have to take into consideration who is behind the text, the sculpture, the object, whatever you have in front of you, and why was this thing produced? Because, when you read the source that was written 1,000 years ago, you can be sure about one thing: it was not written for you. They didn't think that, Lars in Norge, I Trondheim, I 2024, is going to read this thing and, get, illuminated about what happened in Viking times. No. Things were written for a reason. What was that reason? This is a part of the critical thinking we have to do in everything. When you read something in the news today, you have to think about exactly the same thing. When you watch somebody in TikTok, when you watch somebody in YouTube, you have to think exactly the same thing. Why on earth this person produces this thing? Because he or he loves me, you can be sure that this is not the case. But what is the case? And this is what we wanted to show our students. And ChatGPT helped us, because exactly ChatGPT is so stupid and hallucinating that if you don't use it critically, you end up being even more stupid and sometimes hallucinating yourself. The metacognitive thing was amazing. Having students who at the end of in the evaluation of the course came back with, now I'm a better student in anything I will study in the future, because now I understand much better how I work, which my weaknesses are, and which are my strongest sides as a student. And I hope that this is something my students and you in the future will take with them in their lives, because we learn the whole thing, the whole time in life. When you start working and you jump from one work to another and anything, you need to learn new things. How do you learn? What is it you cannot learn, and why? And what is it you learn easily? By the way, parenthesis, very important. This is, guys, something which is very, very important for you to know which things you learn easily and well. Why? Because it has to do with how your brain functions. Your brain as a machine, as a hardware, not your mind. Okay? Ikke sinne deres, men deres hjerne. Okay? There's a difference there. Understand that we cannot control our brain. We can train it to get better in some things, but if you are good in mathematics and you are not good in language, don't blame yourself about not being good in language or in mathematics or, in chemistry or whatever, okay? Accept that your brain functions in a concrete way. If you see that I learned this thing, quite easily, you talk with the others and they say, come on, guy, how is it possible that you understand so well mathematics, okay? Accept it and think, wow, what does this mean for me for the rest of my life? Okay, it means that there are things that they always be easy for you, and you will always be good at these things. Probably this is your career path. Okay, if you have somebody in the family or somebody saying, you should study history because you have to be like Apostolos Spanos, tell them, my brain is not like this crap Greek fat guy, it functions differently. Okay, that's important. So, I guess Bloom GPT 2.0 and 3.0, it sounds nice, isn't it? Yes, thank you. I appreciate it. So what are we going to do? Now we're working towards the beginning of next semester. And the idea is that we will improve the whole thing. We will make it better technically and more user-friendly and everything. And we will test it in at least 4 different courses this time, because the idea is, now I'm talking to teachers more, that this will be very soon open access. By the end of this year, we will hopefully technically have it ready, and it will be open access, and we will give it to the world, which means that we will make it so that anyone, schools, universities, in any language in the world will be able to use this thing. We will have open Socratic. You don't need details. You will, change some things. This was a presentation for something else, but I told you that you are lazy, all of you, and myself, of course. And I hope that you are a bit more lazy than me, because that's much better in life. Because I'm very lazy, but I'm a workaholic at the same time. It's not a paradox. I mean it. I am workaholic and I am lazy. Very simply, because we all are lazy in things we don't like very much. If you ask me to clean the house, I prefer to work. So I will work and I will not clean the house. If you ask me to, okay. So we all try to save energy one way or another. Let's not get there. But your teachers are also lazy. My colleagues at the university are also lazy. What are we trying to do now? We are trying to include a new thing so that teachers will upload into the system the description of the course, Emnebeskrivelsen, and the readings of the course and all the material of the course, so that the machine itself will prepare everything, or will propose that, okay, these are the Socratic tasks, these are the basic tasks, these are the things for evaluation, these are the things, everything, so that colleagues will have a very easy job. I want to use this one, click. I don't want to use this one, out of the window. Why? Because, I mean it, guys, I mean it. People are by nature programmed to be lazy, all of you. I made the mistake of telling that to my daughter, who's 29 now, and she used it against me for the rest of her school period. Anyway, that's another thing. So the idea is, I saw how beautiful this is for my students. My students were so thrilled and enthusiastic, and I want as many students as possible to use it. If this means that I have to convince lazy people to get it, and I say lazy, but there are colleagues at universities and schools and so on who are not technically advanced. They don't know how to do it. But if you tell them, you upload all your material and the machine makes everything ready for you. You just check it, you control the quality is good, and then you put it on, and the students will have a benefit from it. Because for me, everything is about how we will help the students to learn better and to learn in a more attractive way. Yes, we don't care about that. Yes, beautiful. Now you can breathe, and I can be so satisfied with myself as I like being. And questions? Yamas. Do you know what this means? Huh? No, not called don't kill me, because don't kill me. Yamas means to our health. So every time you say it, so when we say yamas, we wish each other good health. Okay? Yamas. I hope you don't have a headache right now. So, yes. Questions? You do have a headache. I'm not short. Anyway, yes, guys, young guys, older guys, please.
When did you realize you had a passion for what
Do I?
I mean, it's you're a workaholic and you, I mean, is this all people at least that you enjoy with your work? I think at least from my.
Well, okay. This is a much more important question than speaking about this thing. You are in the beginning of your lives and careers, and it's a beautiful thing. I want you to remember something. Let me present you my history, and I'm joking about myself, but sorry for using myself as an example. I studied religion in the beginning, theology, and then I studied manuscripts, and I studied journalism, and I ended up being a professor in history, and I have never in my life studied history. Never. Okay. It is extremely important, especially for you guys who are now 17, what, 18? 18, 19. It's extremely important to remember that you and we have no idea what the world will be like in 10 years from now, which means that most probably most of you will work on jobs that do not exist yet. What is the most important thing you can get with you from school, from university, and for the rest of your lives? Understanding yourselves, exactly what I said, especially your strong dimensions, and being flexible enough to jump from one thing to the other. With manuscripts and journalism, a Greek in Norway would never survive. I wouldn't have to eat, probably I would have a better shape, but anyway, that's another thing. Okay, but when I came to Norway, I understood that if I want to survive, because I love, teaching, doing research and so on, if I want to survive, I have to get into something new. And I love, you never know. You like it. Sometimes, when I started working with manuscripts, you speak about passion. Think about yourselves, guys, and look at the mirror and be proud. Anything. When I started working with manuscripts, do you know why I did it? I believe girls will be fascinated by that. I was 20, 21. I thought, manuscripts, everybody was looking at me like Harrison Ford, Everybody was, did you find the treasure? I'm on my way. I was saying, I thought, the girls will be, because I was never, attractive or anything. I had always this fucking thing. Anyway, so, but then I loved it. I loved it. And then after some years, I thought, it's boring. I have this thing. My ex-wife says that, every 5 years you have to change something. I did something with games. I did it for 5 years exactly. She was right. She knew me. That's why she left me. So poor me, Anyway, but that's another thing. But keep that in mind. The most important thing. This is what I tell Alexandra, my daughter, and Photios, my son. I don't care what you will do in your life. This is very Greek. This is not Norwegian. This is not Jantelov and like. But I tell my kids, if you do whatever the fuck you do, be the best you can. And if you can be best everywhere, the better among everyone in your group, whatever, do it. Okay? Don't get crazy about that, but do it with your whole heart, because I don't know when. I'm sorry, it was a long answer to not give you an answer. I know I love it. I have one fear in my life, that I will end up 90, blind or something, and I will not be able to read and write anymore. That's my only fear in life. I will not be able to work. I will not be able to do something new. And then, when I look back, I have done extremely boring things in my life. I mean it. I see some of my books and I think, and how were they published? At all. The stupid thing is, it's these books that they sell the most, But, you learn something. even learn from your mistakes, and you think, I'm so happy, and always you think that's the best period in my life. I'm 54, and this is the best period in my life. And I hope that when I'm 70, I will tell you guys, 20 bullshit, 70 is amazing, because you do something that gives meaning. That it's important. Find something that gives meaning. Okay. Now we're totally off, modeling and ChatGPT and everything. Thank you. I hope you got something. I like talking much without saying anything. Yes. Yes, please.
Are you scared at all about ChatGPT?
Yes, 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 yes.
What's the biggest
Yes.
fear?
I'm not scared about ChatGPT or any piece of technology. I'm scared about the people who are behind it and the people who use it. That's the problem, You have nuclear energy, and nuclear energy in itself might be used for, whatever reason which is noble and important and, anything, but at the same time, it can kill people. This thing is indeed dangerous. One thing is dangerous. Please remind me to say something about its environmental dimension as well. It is dangerous and we are afraid of it for many reasons. One is that this is the first time a technological achievement controls, and in some things controls better than us, the most important thing we have, language. Because we think in words, and we are what we are the most dangerous and the most powerful animal on earth, despite the fact that naturally we're nothing, even mosquitoes can kill us. Okay, we are so dangerous and so productive and so creative and so amazing because of our language. That's the basic technology we have. And now we have something that uses language in a much better way than us. And now we are afraid that it will happen with us what happens to all these amazing chess players who now cannot play against. If you have the master, Magnus Carlsen, nor Hans Filter, okay? If you let him play against the machine, he will lose 10 out of 10 times. What does this mean for us? And the other thing is that, okay, so far we believe we kind of control artificial intelligence, but my colleagues who are experts, because I am not, tell me that there is what is called in their field the black box of artificial intelligence, which means there is an area of the function of AI which they don't understand themselves. Even the creators of AI cannot understand how some parts of AI technology functions, and we don't know what is going to happen there. If, the machines or anything will control us, I don't know. I cannot do anything about that. I can continue, thinking about the most important thing in life, which is if Barcelona will win tonight. Yes. And about environment, which is another thing we don't usually discuss. Every time we use this thing, every time you use this thing, and sometimes we use it to make totally stupid things. Have you used the thing that creates videos? You know now that you can get into OpenAI and you put a text and you say create a video for me with Apostolos being even like that and so on and whatever, and it will create it for you, and you will send it to other people and you will laugh about me or anybody else and so on. Do you know how much energy will this machine use in this half a minute to create that? The energy the house you live in uses in a year. It's amazing how much energy all these servers use. It's amazing. That's why you will see that in many universities, Agder University among them, because we have this amazing Center for Artificial Intelligence Research, everybody works on two things: human AI, whatever this means, and green AI. because the ecological, the environmental footprint of AI technology is huge. I learned someplace, don't quote me because I'm not sure, it was just a discussion, but that the one server of AI in Norway uses as much energy as 600,000 apartments or houses. One. So I want to, please don't use it to just play with it. I don't. I only use it, when there is a real reason to use it. And this is what I tell my students, use it, but please, please just use it only when there is a reason. To try to answer in one sentence, I cannot be afraid. At the same time, I am worried. And I am worried about these people who are behind it, because they are not the best people in the world who are behind all these huge companies. And they don't care about you and me, and they don't care about the planet, and they don't care about anybody else than themselves. So I don't know. I don't know. It's like having a crazy person or a person who wants everything behind the button with the nuclear bombs. You never know. We'll see. I'm afraid of people. More things? Yes, please.
You told us that a lot of us will have jobs or work in stuff that isn't even created right now, and I guess also implying that a lot of stuff or some areas might disappear. Or
Yes.
Yeah. How do you recommend us to prepare for that, or how can we kind of deal with it?
One thing for now, as long as you are going to school, be the best possible pupils you can be. Okay, not to get new grades, good grades, but because you will need any kind of knowledge you can get in your future lives. Those of you who think, we will get through school and we will get a fucking 3 or something, you will have problems in life. You can be sure, because this thing, something that I am afraid of, creates a new type of inequality. There are those who have access to it, and those who can't use it, and those who cannot. Those who cannot use it will have problems in finding jobs in the future, and they will have problems in being creative enough and productive enough in their jobs to keep their jobs. Okay, so what I want to tell you is, for as long as you are whatever, learn as much as you can, reflect as much as you can about anything you learn and about yourself. Prepare yourselves for a world you have no idea about. I don't know about the world in 15 years from now, but I'm 54, And if I lose my job, I will become a football coach. Guardiola, come on. Okay, I will be, I will be your coach in the future. Okay. Yes. So, how much you will learn these technologies is secondary. Okay. Learn to learn. Okay. So be prepared that whatever new comes, I will be able to learn it, because, I have that background. Please.
How do you do that, or how do
Yes, how do you do that? First of all, you try to forget you're lazy. Okay. The other thing is, be curious. How you train yourself to be curious, I don't know. But you play games, right? Learn from the games. And then, what do you play?
in what context? Like video games?
Yes, of course. We're talking about serious stuff, what?
Have you ever Civilization?
Oh, baby, civilization. Beautiful. So that, civilization is accused by historians as being a vehicle for promoting American propaganda, for promoting the American civilization as the ideal civilization for the whole world and so on. It's beautiful. And I have written an extremely boring book about games as sources of history, and I have a chapter on civilization. Civilization is a beautiful game. Learn, but you will not get historical, knowledge from civilization. You play games. All of you play games, okay? Be curious. This happens in the game. Was it true or not? Was it correct or not? You start, and you see how you learn about how the society functions. Because think every game you play, guys, start reflecting. Because someone produced the game for you, and they produced it for you, and they produced it for you to play so much that you will not meet other people, that you will be alone, or you will meet only because they want you to play as much as possible. Then you start reflecting and discussing between you why and how. How is it so that I'm getting, hooked by the game so much that I forget to eat, forget to see my football watching, or whatever. Okay. And you try to understand, to reflect, to be critical in everything. That's the thing. Critical thinking about everything, about yourself. Okay. Start looking in the mirror and start trying to understand, why and how I do the things I do and so on. So it's not about knowledge itself. It's about being able to absorb any knowledge, reflect on it, work on it critically, and make it something you can use for something good. That's the thing. It's not about reading this and that. It's about being curious about everything, everything. And let yourself, if you are interested in this or that, enjoy it. Just do it. Yes.
What's the most historically accurate game?
Whoa. 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 I thought I liked it. Okay, in one sentence, because we're falling off. Is it okay? We're falling off, but in game studies and in the way we are working on games, from a historical perspective, we're talking about historical representation and authenticity and everything. There is no game that is historically correct, because if a game was historically correct, it would be a kind of linear, and it wouldn't let you play a role in the game. And why should you play? So they have this freedom of creating games that are kind of, attractive for you to play. And to do so, they have to create, figures that would not exist in reality. They have to change things. They must make some things more familiar to you, to understand them better. Because, if it's very difficult, it's always like that. So there is no game that is historically correct. Which is the most historically correct? There are some that historically correct in one way when it comes to events. There are some other that are historically correct when it comes to people that are presented in the games. There are the games that are historically correct when it comes to the environment they present and everything. It's impossible to say which one is more historical, most historically correct. And I would never say that there is the. What do you play?
Right now, Far Cry.
Which one?
Far Cry.
I don't know which one.
Fallout.
Fallout. It's not Second World War. No.
No, there's no. I don't really play any historical games.
You don't. It's post-apocalyptic. Beautiful. My favorite thing. Yes, beautiful. More things? Okay. Please.
Would you recommend a game?
Yes. Carcassonne. Now you know how boring I am. No. I want to recommend, digital games. I don't play myself, I sometimes try to follow my son play and I have, I get a headache in 5 minutes or something. If I really want to tell you something. The best games ever in history, 4,000 years of playing games, the best games have been always the games that combine strategy and luck. If you have any game that combines strategical thinking and movements with luck, the unpredictable thing that you get something, or that the game itself, if it's a video game, gives you something you don't expect at all, and you have to, work against them. These are the most attractive and creative games. Please, yes.
So do you think chess is a bad game?
Chess is a beautiful game because it's a strategy game, but these games, chess and Go even more and so on, are games in which you have so many different options that it's amazing, isn't it? 8 to 8 and 16 against 16, and it's billions of possible combinations, it's billions. So chess is a game that makes you think better, makes you think strategically better, makes you, have more critical thinking, a sharp thinking, and so on. Absolutely, yes. Yes.
Do you think that AI will help those source of income in the future, or you can use it to?
What do you mean? What do you think?
Well, for example, ChatGPT, using it to get work done more easily, or using it to maybe control or administrate.
Yes.
For example, a business or something.
Absolutely. There are two things you have to think about. All these new technologies will, was it you who asked me about jobs that they will be lost? Jobs will be lost, but more jobs will be created because of that. This has been always the case. When ATMs, ATMs, when they came, people who were working in the banks destroyed them during the night because they were afraid that they will lose the jobs. It's always like that. But in reality, new jobs are created every time a new technology comes. New jobs related to working on programming and so on, AI researching and so on, many things, and new jobs in which you will use AI. And in the future, you will have two different things. You will have AI assisted, humans working in different jobs, but you will also have jobs in which you will have human assisted AI doing this or that. So it's many, many, many things. To give you, in a parenthesis, about new jobs. 10 years ago, nobody was thinking that there will be a job called drone pilot. Do you know how many drone pilots you have? Professionals, they live from that today. Thousands, if not, hundreds of thousands, if not millions. So these are the new things we will come. We have no idea about, and you should be ready to jump on the horse and ride. Yes, please. You wanted to say something. Who was it? It was you. No, I thought it was you.
Yes. And then another one.
Who was it, guys? Let's make some count.
I think
Please.
you said that the answer that the AI gave was stupid, but how long would it take before you could say it's smart enough to present the illusion of
Yes.
intelligence?
Yes, it's getting better and better. It's
Like
getting better.
exponentially better?
Yes. Yes, it does. It does. And that depends on, because when you use the free one, we at universities and we at centers who pay and so on, we use more improved versions, and we see that it's getting better and better and better. Because back in time, in the first months, you could ask ChatGPT, what is it 3 times 10? And it would say 30. And you would say, come on, are you kidding me? It's 32. And it would say, oh, I'm sorry, of course, it's 32. And if you continue the discussion with it in the same discussion, and then 2 minutes later, you would ask, how much is 3 times 10? It would say 32. Now it doesn't do it. For example, it's getting more and more trained, it's getting more and more access to data and so on. So it's getting better. How much time? I don't know. I would never say. Yes, please.
Should there be laws and legislations against AI?
Against the use of AI. It's always about how we use it. Okay, because my colleagues, most of my colleagues, for the time being, do not afraid of AI will govern the world. We're not there yet, at least. But how you use it, there are even people who say that this is more or less the same when it comes to how important it is with nuclear power. So when nuclear power came, we had to have new laws about how you use it. And they say that this is equally important, that we have to have new laws about how you use it and how, what we don't have the right to do. It will come. The problem is that, by the way, this is not new. We often speak in history about what is called acceleration of time and acceleration of history. This feeling that things happen so, that you don't, you cannot absorb things. Things come, and until you realize what's happening and so on, new things come and new things come and new things come. And this acceleration is something that makes us feel that we lose control. And the problem is that now we have this same feeling. And the problem is that states and organizations that discuss about regulations and come with new rules and new laws and everything usually are more conservative and more slow than all these companies who have the best in the world because they give them huge salaries and everything, and they use them as slaves in reality, very well paid slaves. And they say produce, improve, produce, improve, produce, improve. And until you have a legislation, in a state like the Norwegian government or anything, you need 3 months to discuss, this or that rule, because, you have stupid people like me being in the government. But, in these 3 months, you make a rule and the rule is outdated. So we will have new rules. How good will they be and how, effective they will be? I don't know. Probably we can ask AI to create new rules also. So probably. Yes,
I think she was there.
please.
You mentioned that we're usually disinterested in things that, or like lazy regarding things that we're disinterested in, right? So if we don't want, we're lazy considering things that we're not interested in.
Yes.
Do you think that when AI will develop and become more accurate and efficient, that we will become disinterested in things that usually interest us because they can do the work?
Oh. Yes, it could be. Yes, there is absolutely a possibility. Yes, but at the same time, the opposite will happen. Okay, you will lose some interest and you will get some interest. So please let me know something so that you will not misunderstand it. I'm coming to you. This thing about laziness. Indeed, we are programmed by nature to be lazy. I use usually the example of my grandmother, who died 104 years old while she was totally healthy. And the question is, why did she die? She died very simply because her battery went off. Her body didn't have more energy to support her own body. So she could not breathe anymore. The heart could not bang anymore, and so on. She died, totally healthy. We saw her the afternoon, 3 hours later, she died. She was perfectly well in everything. No heart attack, no nothing. Why did she die? Because the energy she had in her life and her body went off. We know that. We know that we will die. And we try unconsciously, we don't think about that. We try to save energy the best way I can. And now imagine, what do we say that we do in holidays? What do we say? We charge our batteries. This is exactly what we do. Okay, so that's why we are lazy in many things, because when you try walk a place, you will walk the easiest, the shortest way. You don't think about it. You say, I don't have time. No, you don't have energy. You want to save energy. That's the idea. Please.
So you talk about us. I just have to remember what I was thinking about. It was about learning to use AI and stuff. You talk about how important it is to be curious and to try to learn. At the same time, I agree with what you're saying about it being overwhelming when there's always a new thing and you never really feel that you can learn everything. So for someone who basically doesn't know anything about AI above the average, what would you like recommend to him, or how would you recommend approaching
Well,
it?
that depends on whom we're talking about. Are you talking about somebody your age?
Yeah.
Somebody going to school? Step by step, step by step. You always have to think, if you don't know about it, think what I said before. You have to start thinking, not you, anyone, okay? Why don't I know about it? Why am I not interested? Very simply, probably because your brain is more interested in history. So you will be my student and you will regret it, but that's another thing. Why? Okay, if you see that, okay, you try, particularly if you try and you think, I don't understand it, or I'm not interested in that, think, okay, what is it I can do? You keep in mind that this thing exists. You keep in mind that this thing will become more and more powerful, most probably, and will be more and more a part of life, professional life, economic life, whatever. And then you think, okay, think about the world, guys, the whole time. Okay, now you are at school. Okay, think about your school, about your class as a world. You have some guys who are good in this and that. You probably have some bullies. I hope you don't. You probably have, and you think of your teachers. Your teachers are this, like that. Your environment are this, like that. And start thinking and talk with the people whom you trust. What's my place in it? Where am I in it? There is this world which is, about artificial intelligence, about, jobs in the future and everything. Where am I? What do I want to do? Because, you burn for something. You said about my passion. I burn about something. I have a passion. Why? I have to think the whole time, okay? And I have to think the whole time, will history teachers exist in the future? I don't know. Probably, machines will teach history because, some people teaching history are the most boring people you can think of. Probably you have some extremely boring people teaching history at your school too. Because, if you start focusing on the wrong stuff, Second World War and World this war and this document and, this person, you think, okay. Okay, but history is a beautiful thing. But some of my colleagues at different universities, some historians will lose their job because if you simply present facts about the past, a machine can do it much better. And in 10 years from now, we will have beautiful holograms. So you will have a hologram coming into your classroom presenting things. Why should they need me? Because I have the most terrible memory in the world. The machine will remember everything. If you ask me something, and if I'm only working on facts and information and so on, the machine will be much better than me. Okay, but the question is, what else can I do? Football coach, a belly dancer, I don't know. And you start thinking, what am I good at? What can I do? What is it I burn for? And how can I probably create something that does not exist yet? Please.
I know it's a pity to just stop this very interesting question and Q&A, but do you think we have the time to introduce some of the concepts that we
Do
have
you
here
think we
on
have the time?
models and modeling and history? Just a quarter of an hour.
These guys here are my slaves, they will do
I know.
whatever I tell them to do.
You are a teacher first and foremost, so you
So-
decide, do we have that time? I think we should just.
The question is, if we have somebody online, if anybody is still online, alive and not, watching a football game or sleeping or whatever, or if we have anybody here wanting to hear about modeling and these things, because, it will take us half an hour more. That's the thing. We cannot present these things unless you want to ask me about something specific, and I can present things, of course, I'm yours. I'm your slave, and you are mine. Anyway, yes.
You have discussed about a specific case study on modeling that you could actually not do as hands-on, but still show us the mechanics of this model we were discussing the other time? Do you have
Which
like
one?
a case study? I really don't remember, but you have said that you could present us an example of,
That I cannot do now,
Okay.
now. But what I can tell you is, another thing, something probably you will be interested in, creating models. Everybody models, you model when you plan your lives and everything. Have you ever created a mind map about something? Have they? Huh? When you create a mind map, you create a very simple model about things and you try to connect things and so on and see how they function. You have seen a map, a map of Athens. A map is a model of Athens. It's not a full picture of Athens because, every time you create a model, you take some things out, you focus on specific things and you put specific things in a model. And now the last 50 years or so, we create models in computers. They are called computational models. And now, the last, I don't know, 20, 30 years or even more, we also work on what is called simulation models. Simulation, the word Sims. Do you play Sims? You play Sims. Yes, of course. Yes. Statistics from my work on games and so on say that more women and girls play simulation games and more men and boys play, of course, shooting games and other games. Anyway, Sims are simulations of societies in which we're talking about these sim games, right? In which you have, sorry? Beautiful, yes. And this is kind of what we do in when we try to create simulation models. Let me give you an example with some very good colleagues, because I'm not a modeler myself. I'm trying to be, and I'm getting my friends who are models crazy because anyway. But I have cooperated with two amazing colleagues and now very good friends from the university, Old Dominion University in Virginia, who are modelers themselves. And we have had a couple of projects together, one of which was to study the refugee crisis in Lesbos, which is the island in Greece I am coming from, Cucuta in Colombia, and Cape Town in South Africa, because these places, they had at the same time, starting in 2015, a specific type of a refugee crisis, meaning that these were local communities which received over a short period of time a huge amount of asylum seekers, refugees, forced migrated people and so on, huge amounts. How do you deal with that? So we had a project on how the local communities reacted in receiving and after receiving these huge amounts of people who were coming from different cultures and so on. So imagine a sim game in which you have a society which is well established and so on, a society of, let's say, 30,000 people, which receives within 6 months 1 million people. And you have, these 1 million people, some people go further, but you have, in a local city of 30,000 people, you have some 30, 40,000 migrants and asylum seekers and everything. What happens then? How do the local societies react? And we tried to create a model and then a simulation model in which, because one of the things we try to do is, I have to underline it on beforehand, it is never possible to predict the future, but we do models to think about possibilities, about possible scenarios in the future. So we said, let's see what has happened in these 5 years we worked on, 15 to 20, what happened in the local societies, what happened when the numbers went up and down and so on. In this, we use artificial intelligence because, artificial intelligence and different softwares give you the possibility of getting into the newspapers in Greece, all newspapers in Greece, okay, all newspapers in Colombia, all newspapers in Africa, and find which, you cannot do it. You need 1,000 people to do it manually, but you have software that you can use to go and read everything, find keywords, and we focused on what creates frustration between the locals. What is the servi frustration? Vad ser vi på norska? Ser vi det? Frustration. Okay. So then we all understand what we're talking about. So we saw what happened. We used artificial intelligence to find what happened in events, and we used, also slaves called, sometimes we call them master students and PhD candidates and so on. And we used them too. They used AI, and we found what was happening and what was the reaction. Because the reaction of frustration, you find in social media. Social media is amazing. You get into social media, for example, and you see what people write, and you see that it changes over time. And then you put all that in a simulation model, which you create, and then you start playing with variables. You say that what we know is that this local society in Cucuta in Colombia, for example, has so many locals. And we know that when the numbers of visitors came up there, frustration went very high. When the numbers were lower, frustration went down. When we had specific events, demonstrations by the visitors or anything, frustration went up. When you had blackouts of electricity, we don't have this thing in Norway usually, but in Greece and other places you have it, frustration went up. And then you take all these things and you start thinking, okay, what happens if I have, in Mytilene, for example, which is the city where I'm coming from, it has some 35,000 people. And then you start playing because you feed the machine and the simulation with a lot of information on what really happened. And then you start playing. And the machine can read the things and tell you that if you have 10,000 more visitors coming, most likely, you never can know about the future, but most likely frustration would be at number 8, which means the situation is a bit, I'm not saying because I was told not to curse them off. When you get people down, and then you start playing with qualitative things. What if these 10,000 people are 5,000 Christians and 5,000 non-Christians? Okay, then you expect that the reaction will be that. But what is if it's 1,000 Christians and 9,000 non-Christians coming into a Christian society, when the reaction is a bit like that? And what if 20,000? Then the reaction will be like that, and you might expect violent reactions. Again, please don't misunderstand me. You can never, with a model and a simulation, you can never predict the future, never. Very simply because we humans are chaotic creatures, okay? But you play in these things, okay? And you can use AI in using many things. Some other colleagues, this is something we want or we hope to do in the future. Some other colleagues, and I'm saying this and I'm closing this round, and then we see if you. Some other colleagues I have, a good friend of mine with his team, works on what they call AI multi-agent simulation, which means what? Instead, you create what is called a twin of the society. Let's say Trondheim, we said, right? You know about Trondheim that you get statistics for, what do we call it? NSB, Norsk Statistics Bureau, about who is living in Trondheim. Okay, so you know that it's, how many? 200,000 people. But at the same time, you know how many male, how many female, age, and everything. You put it there, but you cannot put this society into reaction between them. And then you say, let me see what do I have, and you try to create AI agents. Each AI unit into the game will be one human. So you create 200,000 AI units, and you try to put, different characteristics. How many do you have who have a PhD or a master's, or, how many teachers, how many pupils, how many whatever. And then you try to put them play the role of a society. This is a digital twin, it is called. And then you say, let's say that, we put more, let's say that in the near future, you have 10,000 more of this group. What happens? And at the same time, you think, okay, how many, for example, immigrants we have there? What happens if you put 10,000 more AI agents there, and you see how they act and react and so on. So you think how many people work and how many people are unemployed? What happens in the society if you have 20,000 more people unemployed because of a crisis and so on? What should I expect? Okay, what do I have, 3% more of people who drop out from school? What will happen in the society? Okay, so again, this is a game in which, this is a simulation in which you ask AI units to play the role of members of a society, and you never can know, but you can have something to think about, and think about how the future could be again. And then you can hope that you have probably 1 in a million case that you are not 1 in a million, but 1 in 100 or whatever, that this thing will happen. And sometimes you have to think, okay, this is probably it will never happen, but what kind of policies do we need to avoid that it will happen anyway? Because we don't want criminality to go up, we don't want demonstrations on the streets to go up, and so on. Was it something like that you meant, Delia, or?
I think it was an interesting closure of the evening, if I can put it this way.
Thank you. You're very kind, and you are the hero of everybody in the room.
Questions about that section or other questions?
And now they don't like you anymore. Yeah. Beautiful. Why do you do it to me? Yes, please.
Just wondering, you said that it can't predict the future,
No.
the simulations, but how accurate have they been?
No. Then, simulations are more and more accurate in giving you an answer on the basis of the information you give them. So you give them A, they give you A plus, or A minus, or whatever, or B, or whatever. Okay. The thing is that you can never be sure that, particularly when you create digital twins, you cannot be sure that the information you give it is correct. Even if you get a lot of information, let's say that we base something, we say that we will see everything that is written by everybody in social media in Trondheim the last 5 years, and on the basis of that, we will try to understand what happens in the society. There are many people who don't write about these things in social media. Okay, so you never know. You can see, which voices are the most strong, on the basis of how many followers they have and everything. But you cannot be totally sure about the absolute quality of the information you feed the system with. And then the system gives something out. Okay, you can trust that this is a logical answer to have on the basis of the questions you ask, because you ask a question to that. Every simulation is in reality based on a question and a theory. You have theories behind it. So if you ask another question, you will get another answer. If you have another different approach or theory, you will get a third answer. So you can never be sure. And every answer is, yes, it's a logical answer, but we are chaotic. Let me give you one last thing, What do I mean that we are chaotic? Humans are chaotic. We call it a second order chaotic system. The weather is a first order chaotic system. That's why, we can predict the weather for only up to 10 days. I'm not talking about here. And they have, anyway. You can predict somehow the weather, but up to 10 days. But when you see the weather, wherever you see it, and it says that tomorrow it will rain, most probably tomorrow it will rain because the system, the weather does not react to what you say. Let's see how humanity functions. An expert in oil prices, to speak about something that is important in Norway, comes now, it's 7:30 or something, 6:30 in Norway, saying that tomorrow morning the price of oil will be, let's say, 100 crowns. Okay? And this is correct when it is said, and everybody knows that this is correct. You can be sure that the price tomorrow morning will not be 100 exactly because this was correct. What will happen? People will start buying and selling now because they say, okay, I have to buy or I have to sell now so that I will sell in a better price or I will buy in a better price than the 100 tomorrow. But this, what will happen from now until 8 o'clock tomorrow, is not taken into consideration in the prediction. So exactly because of the fact that the prediction was right, it will be proven wrong because we are a chaotic system of second order. This is what you are, it's logical. How many times have you do it? Not you, any one of us in life, you know what the right thing to do is. And you say, I will do it, but finally you don't. Exactly because we are chaotic. And this is one of the most beautiful things that happens in life. Yes. And now I don't have slaves anymore. Barcelona or
Yes, you.
huh?
Yes, you will win the game. What?
You have 13 seconds to get out. They play, I have lost track of everything. Do they play in Spain or in France?
The game has been played in Paris.
In Paris, okay. 2-0 for Barcelona. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you.